Hi, Gary DeWall here, and this is Bridging the Week, September 23rd to 27th, and today is September 30th, 2013. Good morning. This week, brokers once again had to reflect on the price of bad internal controls and individual employee arrogance. Also, what if any obligation do brokers have when their customers do something that may be very, very wrong? And finally, what are the potential increases in the cost of doing business because of banking regulators' proposed new rules regarding banks' capital computation when it comes to clearing futures, swaps, or options for customers? Moreover, this week, swap dealers and other users of swaps will learn whether the decision of the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission to force trading of swaps by U.S. persons onto swap execution facilities on October 2nd promotes transparency and liquidity, engenders anger and confusion, provides a bit of both, or is delayed in whole or part. Well, we have a lot to cover, so let's get started. First, as widely reported elsewhere, ICAP Europe Limited was sued by and settled with the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission and the UK Financial Conduct Authority related to 3 employees of the firm engaging in conduct to manipulate the yen-London interbank offered rate, or yen LIBOR, from at least October 2006 through January 2011. The 3 non-U.S. employees of ICAP also were charged by the U.S. Department of Justice with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and wire fraud in connection with its manipulative activity. In connection with its settlements, ICAP agreed to pay a fine of US dollars 65 million to the CFTC and a fine of Great British pound 14 million, or US dollar 22.4 million. ICAP also agreed with the CFTC to strengthen its internal controls. Each of the non-US employees of ICAP faces a maximum penalty of 30 years in prison for each count charged if convicted. Essentially, 2 of the ICAP employees charged by the DOJ are alleged to have encouraged a 3rd ICAP employee to provide false information to third-party banks regarding the yen borrowing rates. This information was then used by the banks in a process that led to end-of-day yen LIBOR widely disseminated fixing rates that benefited a third-party client of ICAP and did not reflect market activity. The evidence against the employees, and included by the CFTC, the FCA, and the DOJ in their enforcement actions, included much colorful electronic communication that contained explicit references to the alleged manipulative scheme. Okay, let's be frank. The communications evidenced total arrogance and absolute disregard for anything but making money. As I wrote a week ago or so in my review of the JP Morgan fines in connection with its London whale incidents, arrogance and breakdown of internal controls are not a good combination and will come back certainly to haunt firms. However, one thing that is very odd in this matter is that the CFTC and U.S. Department of Justice were involved at all. This is because all the actors in nefarious conduct involved in this matter were situated outside the USA. The CFTC asserted jurisdiction, saying that the 3 employees' conduct to influence the yen LIBOR rate, quote, affected or tended to affect the prices of commodities in interstate commerce, including the daily rates at which yen LIBOR is fixed, end of quote. ICAP was held liable for the acts of its employees and managers who engaged in the wrongful conduct. Okay, I understand this theory, but in these days of limited government resources, do U.S. regulators really need to be involved in non-U.S. actions, even where illegal, when the local regulators are on the case, as they are here with the case by the FCA? Turning to potentially some good news for brokers, wow, this doesn't happen too often, the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals Court in New York ruled that the requirements to demonstrate successfully that a Futures Commission merchant is responsible for a client's manipulative activities are quite rigorous. Specifically in this matter, Amaranth Advisors, LLC, was sued by a class of traders who claimed that the company had manipulated the price of natural gas futures during 2006 and that its clearing broker, JP Morgan Futures, an FCM registered with the CFTC, had aided and abetted this manipulation. a lower court had rejected the trader's initial and subsequently amended claim against JP Morgan. The traders had argued that JP Morgan was liable for Amerant's manipulation because as its clearing broker, it was aware of Amerant's positions and trading activity. In upholding the lower court's rejection of the trader's claim, however, the circuit court held that to establish aiding and abetting, there must be proof of an underlying unlawful intent to further the underlying violations. Here, claims the court, JP Morgan solely provided routine clearing services. Although JP Morgan may have known about Amerant's large positions in and of themselves do not imply manipulation. This is even when such large positions violated applicable position or accountability levels, as the goals of such limits are not just to preclude manipulation, but also to ameliorate excessive speculation, to ensure effective price discovery of markets, and to ensure sufficient liquidity for hedges. This is a very practical decision because FCMs cannot serve as nannies to their clients, even when their clients potentially are engaging in illegal conduct, absent a very high amount of affirmative involvement by the FCM. Despite widespread public expressions of concern, including from at least two CFTC commissioners, Bart Chilton and Scott Amelia, talk about strange bedfellows, the CFTC seems determined to go forward with the October 2nd go-live date for swap execution facilities. As of September 27th, 17 CEFs were approved for trading, and 2 CEF applications were still pending. As of October 2nd, all multiple-to-multiple swap trading venues must register as CEFs if they facilitate transactions on behalf of U.S. persons, even if they only offer products that, as of that date, are not subject to a trade execution mandate, the so-called footnote 88 matter. Single dealer platforms not offering products subject to the trade execution mandate are not required to register as CEFs by October 2nd. Talk about an unfair level playing field. Among the concerns regarding the go-live date for CEFs is that there may be technological impracticalities that prevent compliance with all applicable CEF rules by that date, and that CEF rollout, as seemingly required, may cause serious issues for European-based multilateral trading facilities that accommodate U.S. persons. CFTC Commissioner O'Malley goes further, believing that requiring non-U.S. execution facilities dealing with U.S. persons to register with the CFTC by October 2nd may violate the Barnier-Gensler Path Forward Agreement of just a few weeks ago. In addition, in anticipation of this go-live date, CFTC staff issued guidance on September 26 regarding swaps straight-through processing. Among other things, staff provided its view that 1. A clearing FCM cannot reject a trade executed on a CEF that previously passed its pre-execution risk-based limits. 2. Designated clearing organizations must accept or reject trades on a CEF or a designated contract market, for which the CEF or DCM has established processes for clearing, as soon as technologically practical, which is now regarded as within 10 seconds. This was previously 60 seconds. And 3, any trade executed on a CEF or designated contract market that is accepted for clearing that is not accepted for clearing should be regarded as void. As a result, FCMs, swap dealers, CEFs, and DCMs should not require breakage agreements as a condition for access to trading on a CEF or DCM. And then, in a further effort to beat the clock, the Division of Market Oversight issued a flurry of no-action relief during the evening of September 27th, giving CEFs some time to begin real-time reporting of transactions and price data to swap data repositories, as well as to be responsible to fulfill their enforcement responsibilities with regard to the activities of market participants. The Division of Market Oversight also granted relief to reporting counterparties to uncleared swaps initially executed on a CEF, where information they provide to swap data repositories may be in error or incomplete because of bad or incomplete information provided by SF in the first place. Oh boy, is this really easier than just delaying the go-live date? Not so sure. Okay, briefly now. Late on Friday afternoon, the CFTC filed an enforcement action against John Aaron Brooks related to his efforts to hide trading losses from his employer, an affiliate of an unnamed large New York-based commercial bank, from November 2010 through October 2011. Does this sound familiar? As a result of his activities, the CFTC alleges that the affiliate sustained US dollar $40 million in losses. According to the CFTC, Mr. Brooks committed his fraud by manually entering false values for CBOT-traded ethanol futures into the bank's computer system. The CFTC charged Mr. Brooks with violations of the anti-fraud and new fraud-based manipulation sections of the Commodity Exchange Act and related regulations. Again, this seems very familiar, but I really don't understand how any firm can be allowing traders to enter their own trade information after Societe Generale's experience with Jerome Kerviel exploded during January 2008, and now the recent events at JP Morgan regarding the London whale. The week before last, a wide group of organizations representing a very large cross-section of the agricultural futures market filed a letter with the CFTC arguing against the CFTC's proposals to require FCMs to maintain an amount of their O funds in their customer segregated accounts 24/7, at least equal to the amount of customers' aggregate deficit balances. According to this Ag Group Consortium, this proposal, if adopted, and you'll recall it was proposed in November of last year, this proposal will most likely require customers to pre-margin hedge accounts, discourage farmers from using futures markets to manage their risk, and expose farmers more to FCMs. The last thing, quote-unquote, customers want to do now in the wake of MF Global and Peregrine Financial Group, end of quote. This past week, a bipartisan group of House CFTC oversight committees members wrote a letter to the CFTC echoing these sentiments. Wow, a bipartisan anything these days in Washington? Amazing. Separately, the week before last, a consortium of industry organizations, including GFMA, SIFMA, ISDA, and the Financial Services Roundtable filed one letter, and the Futures Industry Association another, that cautioned the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision from adopting rules that might penalize banks that have FCM subsidiaries that engage in cleared swaps, futures, or options business for their customers. The proposed rules might do this by requiring banks to take leverage capital charges for the exposure BIS posits FCMs have to clearinghouses on the one side and customers on the other in connection with each cleared swap, futures, or options transaction. However, this proposal seems to ignore that FCMs should have no liability to their customers if a clearinghouse fails, and that customers post margin to offset their exposures to FCMs. Let's see where this turns out. The European Securities and Market Authority, or ESMA, had been scheduled to submit to the European Commission by September 25th its proposed technical standards related to the application of EMIR, the European equivalent to Title VII of Dodd-Frank, to transactions between non-EU entities with a direct, substantial, and foreseeable effect within the EU. The new deadline is November 15th. Will this be when ESMA gets even with the CFTC for its regulatory imperialism and reciprocates for the CFTC's effort to regulate the world? Well, at least Europe. Let's see. What does this say? If a dog bites a man, that's not news. But if a man bites a dog, that's news. Along those lines, the CFTC announced this week that it will not bring an enforcement action related to alleged manipulation of the silver markets in 2008 that its Division of Enforcement has been investigating since then. The CFTC commenced its investigation and publicly confirmed it after receiving complaints regarding silver prices. the CFTC made its decision not to bring any charges after spending more than 7,000 enforcement staff hours and reviewing market fundamentals and trading between cash, futures, and over-the-counter markets. In an interview on RT America on November 13th of last year, Commissioner Bart Chilton had said that he believed there had been nefarious actions and, quote, violations of the law, end of quote, in connection with silver trading during the relevant time. Well, niet to manipulation, I guess, and moreover, high-frequency traders were not responsible for something bad once again. Well, you think you had a bad week last week? Well, Vision Financial Markets, LLC, a US-based FCM, was sued not once but twice by the CFTC and settled both matters for an aggregate of US dollars $665,000. In the first matter, Vision was charged with failure to supervise because of its failure to aggregate multiple accounts of a customer in order to assess whether the customer was violating CME speculative position limits. Apparently, Vision relied on faulty software in making its error. After Vision discovered the error in July 2012, the error was not corrected until January of this year. That's a bit of a long time to correct the problem. In the second matter, Vision was charged with failing to segregate properly its customer funds from August 2008 through May 2009. In this matter, Vision purchased securities with customer funds, but commingled these securities with its own funds in a single account at the Depository Trust Company. After Vision was alerted to this issue following a routine examination by the CME, it recalculated its customer segregated funds and learned that it had been undersegregated for a period of time. Prior to the CME audit, Vision did not report it was undersegregated either to the CFTC or CME. Vision was charged both for being undersegregated and failing to notify the CFTC and CME of its undersegregation status. In fairness, it's tough to report something you don't know. Separately and entirely unrelated, R.J. O'Brien, another U.S. FCM, was also fined $125,000 US for a one-day segregation violation involving funds dedicated to the trading of non-U.S. futures and options. In this matter, without advising a non-clearing FCM customer, RGO transferred funds from the client's foreign future secured account to its segregated account for domestic trading without advising the customer in advance. As a result, the non-clearing FCM had insufficient secured funds itself for one day. Wow, that's a lot. But by the way, what do each of these matters mean practically for your business? Give me a call and we can discuss that. 212-382-4615. Anyway, until next week, this is Gary DeWall, and this was Bridging the Week. Have a great week.